Alright, I've got a decent rectangle cut out for the screen. I don't know any really good tricks for getting good straight lines, but I did my best. I didn't like how I had to kind of cut straight through the middle of that Nintendo logo. I think if I make another one of these, I could probably find places to trim the motherboard on top, possibly, and maybe carve deeper into here to maybe lift it just above the Nintendo logo. That might be a nice touch, and I think it's probably possible. But for now, it is what it is. A problem that I am seeing is that I'm holding it upside down. A problem is that with the screen there, it pushes the buttons, the D-pad and the face buttons back. And if you look at, a DS, obviously the screen is raised up in front of the buttons, and I don't know if that's to keep the buttons from hitting the top shell as it closes, but obviously it's, in front of the buttons somewhat. So I could potentially put something between the buttons and the contact points, but I'm worried that that'll mess with the feel of the buttons, and I only want to do that as a last resort. So I might do a couple things. The first thing I want to do is remove the digitizer from this screen, because to play Game Boy Advance games you don't need a digitizer, and you can get through all the initial setup screens and set up, like where you input your birthday and your name and stuff to set it up the first time. You can do all that with just the face buttons. So I'm going to try to just peel off that layer, and that'll buy us a little bit of thickness, or it'll take away a little bit of thickness from the screen. And then when that's off, I'll probably try, let's see here, not bad, I'll have to polish that up. When what I'm going to try to do is maybe carve out or sand down sort of the inside edge of this to push the screen even further up, and maybe that will raise the buttons up high enough to poke through these holes again, because right now you can just barely even touch them through the holes. So that's what I'm going to try to do to get some of that, get rid of some of that thickness. Another thing I decided was that this D-pad piece spins really well. So that's sort of a bonus. You can spin that on your tabletop. And a thing that I'm going to do to keep the buttons from rotating a lot is this piece sort of has the indents and little notches where these buttons go in, because the buttons have little nicks on them and whatnot to keep them oriented correctly. So I'm going to kind of cut away that piece and glue it onto the back of this piece, and maybe I might have to sand that down to get it in there so that the buttons sort of sit in there, but that's what I want to use to keep the buttons from rotating so that the letters don't turn upside down and whatnot. So that's my next couple of steps. And I should also mention I took the sticker off the back. There's just a boilerplate normal sticker on the back of every Super Nintendo cartridge. I took that off because as I was trying to cut this hole, I thought, I should leave it there so it looks as much like a Super Nintendo cartridge as possible. But that sort of made it hard for the lines to be clean at all. There'd just be weird shreds of that sticker hanging off of the edge, and I couldn't even tell if it was straight or not. So I just went ahead and took it off, and I think it looks fine without it because there's so little of it that would have been there anyway. So if you want to do that from the get-go, that's certainly something you can do. Alright, it's essentially back to where it was with the button heights. I figured out, so I peeled off the digitizer. This is the digitizer. And I spent a little bit of time trying to clean all the sticky adhesive off of the layer underneath it before I discovered that I could just peel that whole plastic layer off. So I peeled that whole thing off, made the screen much thinner, so now the motherboard presses a lot closer up to the plastic of the game cartridge. I got the plastic all cut out from the DS that holds the buttons in their right orientation. That took a lot of sanding, but I think it's going to make all the difference, and it's going to keep those buttons where they're supposed to be. I might epoxy it to the inside of the the game cartridge. I sanded that down a little bit to get a little bit extra room. Not sure how I'll do that. And I might even, I'm debating sanding down part of this edge anyway, just so that I can get a little bit closer, because I think when I hold it close like that, I'm kind of bending the motherboard a little bit to push these buttons out so that they stick farther out of the game cartridge. So I might just get just that much more space, just a little bit of dremeling around that edge to get it just a little bit closer, so that that board can sit flat against the game as far up as it can go, so that I can get as much height from those buttons as I can, because I don't want to sand down on this end, because I want that to look just like that. But anyway, so that's going really well. The next thing I want to worry about is, before I attach this board to the inside of the game cartridge, the solder points for the speakers are right there, right here next to the resistor and next to the D-pad and right next to the screen. It's kind of cramped and crowded in there, but I want to get those soldered and squared away before I do much of anything else. So I need to open this up. There are some pads I need to get out of the way. Okay, I got those pads out of the way. I did some real damage there when the screwdriver slipped. Good thing I'm not using this anymore. Got those pads out of the way so I can access those screws and take them out. Looks like I might need to take some more screws out here on the hinge. Now this part right here that I just pulled out, that's used to diffuse the light from the LEDs when you turn it on and when you charge it. So I might try to keep that. I haven't decided what I'm going to do for putting if I want to put those lights up here in the corner. And I probably do. So I think I'll save that and maybe work something out with that. I can pop these hinges out now. That piece did not want to come off, but here I have these speakers, and really I'm just going to rewire them. Oh, that one's got some pretty long wires on it, but I'm just going to clip those and rewire them where I want them. Or I'm going to solder them to the board there and then just put the speakers where I don't know where I'm going to put them yet, but I got to figure that out. But for now I'm just going to cut these wires. And there's our speakers.